everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to this special 5-part episode on assessing ethics and compliance in mergers and acquisition. This podcast series is sponsored by Affiliated Monitors. Founded in 2004, Affiliated Monitors provides professional independent integrity monitoring and ethics and compliance assessments nationally and internationally and across almost all industries. With its knowledge of effective ethics and compliance programs and cultures, Affiliated Monitors is respected for its work as the corporate monitor on matters ranging from multinational corporations to small and mid-sized companies and even individuals. Having served in over 700 monitorships, no one has more experience as an independent monitor than the team at Affiliated Monitors. For more information on how an independent monitor can help improve your company's ethics and compliance programs, visit our podcast series sponsor, Affiliated Monitors, at www.affiliatedmonitors.com. In Part 1, we take a look at the whys, whats, and hows of an independent assessment in the M&A context. In Part 2, the impact M&A has on both the merged company and the parent. In Part 3, the need for an integration plan to be implemented. And in Part 4, oversight of merged companies, issues, and complications. Finally, in Part 5, we conclude with how mergers and acquisitions can benefit from an independent assessment. I know you will enjoy this 5-part series and you will get quite a lot out of it. This 5-part series on assessing ethics and compliance in mergers and acquisitions is a special series of the Compliance Podcast Network. In this Part 2, I'm joined by Don Stern, Managing Director, Corporate Monitoring and Consulting Services at Affiliated Monitors, to discuss the impact M&A has on both the merged company and the parent corporation. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again, back for another episode. Today, I'm visiting with Don Stern. Don is the Managing Director, Corporate Monitoring Consulting at Affiliated Monitors. We're here today to visit on the impact of a merger and acquisition on the merged company and the parent. So, Don, first of all, thank you for taking the time to visit with me today.
Glad to be with you, Tom.
Don, one of the things that I don't think people think about enough are the inherent or certainly potential risks in the M&A situation on the culture of both companies. How would you help a client understand that risk and then begin to put in a risk management plan around it?
Well, I think, let me make one observation before I answer directly your question, Tom. And that is, I've been surprised both when I was a federal prosecutor and then later a white-collar defense lawyer and now doing compliance and monitoring with Affiliated Monitors, that companies that are considering acquiring other companies spend huge amounts of resources to hire lawyers, investment bankers, accountants, and they scrub the financials and they look at income and they look at revenues and expenses, and they spend almost no time, in my experience, or very little time, in taking a look at issues like the ethical culture of the company to be acquired. And I've never quite understood, everyone understands the risk of any acquisition, that the company picture may not work out quite as rosy as was expected. There may be some synergies that were expected from a expense point of view that don't quite work out. But one of the big risks is with the merging and integration of a variety of systems, including ethical culture. And of course, what I think most companies probably intellectually know but don't quite fully absorb is something called successor liability. And that is, if there are real ethical problems, if there are compliance problems, if there are violations of the law, bribes, payoffs, corruption, anything along those lines, the company that acquires the other company will be responsible down the road as far as the Department of Justice and the SEC and other regulators are concerned. You can't throw up your hands and say, wasn't my company, it didn't happen on my watch. Once you acquire that other company, you wear it and you own it and you're going to have to pay for it.
Don, I often tell people that, at least in the FCPA world, if a company was engaging in bribery and corruption before the merger and they continue to do so after the merger, it's no longer them, it's now you. And to your point exactly, that I don't think companies take a look at those issues very well. But maybe if I could ask, what are some of the risks that can be mitigated, and any strategies you might suggest companies try to implement?
Well, I think by the way, there are some inherent risks in the whole process, because the company that is about to be acquired, the management in particular, have a strong incentive to push the envelope when it comes to financial projections and other areas. So the risk is the acquiring company needs to take a hard look at the representations that are being made, financial and otherwise. And the way to really really need to dive into the culture and compliance of the company. They need to look at the policies and procedures, but more than that, they need to look at the human capital and talk to people, not just at the management upper level, not just the CFO, the CEO, the IT people, but to really talk at, the sales managers, the people out in the field. And that takes it might take a little bit more time, and it can't always be done pre-merger. But as you allude to, if it's not done pre-merger or pre-acquisition, it has to be done very, very promptly, very thoroughly, and very diligently soon thereafter.
Some of the things that I think companies really miss on the being impacted, particularly occur in this first period after a merger is closed. It's either viewed as a honeymoon period, or if you're in the target that's been acquired, it may be the terror period, because you don't know what your job status and job situation might mean. And I really want to say that as a lead into, I was wondering if you could provide some examples where the merger and acquisition has either positively or negatively impacted the acquired company, or even the parent or purchaser.
Yeah, it's a great question. So we were involved in wasn't part of a monitorship, but we were involved in taking a look at a major engineering company, the international company that had acquired a smaller company in the South, in the Louisiana, Mississippi area. And I think the acquiring company thought that because they were the 800-pound gorilla, and they were had relatively well-tooled compliance programs, that everyone in the smaller acquisition would jump on board and kind of get the signal. And what they totally missed was that this smaller company had been in existence for a number of years. They had their own culture, their own policies, their own people, and they weren't really paying attention to what the mothership was telling them. And it took really some very serious problems and a Department of Justice investigation for them to get the picture. And we helped provide that picture of the fact that policies on paper, training procedures that were done online and things like that, frankly, were being either ignored or either intentionally ignored, or really weren't being understood. So that was a story that really where the integration really was woefully inadequate. By contrast, we did something fairly recently where we were brought in, again, on a proactive basis. This wasn't part of any kind of government settlement or monitorship, by a medical a company that provides dental and medical services, and they had made some acquisitions in the Midwest, and asked us to go in to see how it was going. And there, the tone was so strong at the top. The training was very much focused on quickly integrating physicians and dental assistants and dentists into the program. And it was made easy for them to do that. So that although we provided some, I think, helpful suggestions to how it might be better, by and large, the program was working well. And we certainly reported back to management at the parent company that their efforts to integrate really what had been disparate cultures was moving along quite nice and was very successful.
Integration phase, I guess I've just seen too many companies not ask the questions that you suggested or have been suggested in terms of pre-acquisition. So when they get to the integration phase after closing, it's literally the first time they have been exposed to the former target, now their subsidiary's culture. How can you help a company not really assess, but move to that integration phase? Is there a way that an independent integrity monitor can help smooth out that process in the integration phase?
I think so. And part of it, of course, is having a plan, having the desire to do it quickly. We have found there is, and you sort of alluded to this, there's a little bit of a I wouldn't call it a standoff, but a little bit of a concern both from the acquirer and the acquiree about what's going on. Is my life going to be different? Are the rules going to be different? And so we found that an independent third party like us that comes in with some credibility and with some experience, that people will talk to us in a way that really is very helpful to the company, the acquiring company. They will tell us that we don't understand what this training is all about. We don't understand why we're being trained on this because it doesn't seem to be fit with our job description, or we don't know why they're looking at this area when the real risk area is in this country, and we don't know why resources are being provided there. So the third party is really just part of the team. We don't suggest that we come in, as a lone ranger without regard to other efforts to integrate IT, human resources, legal. But this is just a piece of the puzzle. And again, I think particularly when it comes to ethics and compliance, Tom, and culture, that having that third party independence really lets people open up and gives a window into how the integration process is going and how it can be improved.
Don, I'd like to follow up on that because I think that's a really significant point that you've raised, which is the independent third-party nature of what AMI brings in this situation. And having visited with you guys and talked to and understood that people are more comfortable with a truly independent in communicating both inbound and outbound, telling you things and listening to what you're saying. And what I've heard you say is that works as strongly in the post-acquisition integration context.
Absolutely. It does. And I want to just return, though, to the pre-acquisition thing and just make one point, if I can, Tom. And that is, if the acquiring company weaves in ethics and compliance as one of the things that really is the prerequisite before the deal goes through, it doesn't necessarily mean they have to reinvent the wheel. So they have, for example, accountants and other people looking over the books and records of the company to be acquired. But the question is, are they looking at it through the right lens? Are they looking at it not just in terms of how robust are the revenues and what's the revenue stream look like, and is there a way for us to trim expenses and to look for some synergies of expenses? But what do the payments look like? I mean, how many independent agents do they have in India and China? And what are the payments there look like? What are they doing with third-party agents? Are they doing any due diligence or any training for third-party agents? So it's not always a question of a brand new set of considerations. It's sometimes a question of integrating those considerations and educating the acquiring company as to what they should be looking for.
Well, Don, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I've been visiting with Don Stern. We've been taking a look at the impact on M&A has on both the merged company and the parent. Don, thank you for taking the time to visit with me, and I hope everyone will join us for our next episode, which will be on the integration plan. Don, thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you will join me in our next episode where we take a look at the need for an integration plan to be implemented. This special series on assessing ethics and compliance in mergers and acquisitions, sponsored by Affiliated Monitors, is a special presentation of the Compliance Podcast Network.